Now that's
So I'm delighted to welcome Becca Cotto here this evening to share with us what's happening under the dome so that we can be better informed about the work the legislature is doing and if in fact there are phone calls we need to make or if we need to show up at Legislative Hall based on what's being considered and the support that would be helpful. So Becca, I'll turn it over to you when you're done. Plenty of opportunity for questions and comments. And if anybody feels the need to speak up sooner, I'm sure Becca doesn't mind being interrupted with questions or comments. So
not at all. And I will tell you guys, I follow a lot of legislation. I put this PowerPoint together tonight just for you, and I was at Legislative Hall all day, so I did it in between. So hopefully we can get through it. I did a pretty thorough job, but if I'm off here or there, I have a six instead of a two, we'll fix it together. I promise. And I'm glad to send out the PowerPoint as well afterwards because it'll have all the bills numbers. And then if you guys have something that you're thinking about or you know about that I'm not covering, please let me know. Let's see, share screen. Let's start there. Let's see now. That let me do. All right, great. You guys can see that, right?
we can.
All right, let's get started. Okay. So we followed a couple different buckets. Wow, this is really big on here. So I just labeled this under RSJ and civil rights. These are all the voting bills for this particular session. So if you are, I'm just letting people into your meeting. If you are concerned about voting, this is where we go. And today was Voting Rights Lobby Day, which was great. We talked to a lot of legislators. We still need a couple on a lot of these things. So SB 20 SS1 for SB2. This is the first leg of a constitutional amendment, and it's basically to put in our Constitution the early 10-day voting that we have been having. And for not everybody knows this, so forgive me if I'm telling you something you already do know, but when something is a constitutional amendment, it means it has to go through two general assemblies, which doesn't mean 2 years, it means two general assemblies. So if we get them past this year, or even if we kick them to next year, that's one round. And then there's an election, and then new people come in, and that's two rounds. And that's the only way to get something into our Constitution. It also needs two-thirds of the House and the Senate to be to actually become law. So this is just the beginning for most of these. SS or SB2, that one has gotten through the Senate. And now it's gotten through, voted on. It's in the House Admin Committee. This one seems to almost be a guarantee. Like the Republicans are on board for this, which and I'm not being, just last year it split down the middle. So that's good news. That one looks like it's really going to happen. Um, SS1 to SB3, this is another first act of a constitutional amendment, and this is basically no excuse absentee voting. And also it not expiring, meaning if you're disabled and you have that selected and you're set up in the system that you don't have to reaffirm that every year, that it stays in that kind of status. And so that one looks like it's going to be tough. We need, I think, two more votes in the House. But we're working on it. I can't tell you who or who at this point. They all said, all the Democrats today said yes. I did not have the privilege of speaking with anyone who was opposed to it. So I didn't have to do a lot of that. And that has passed through the Senate, and now it's sitting in the House Admin Committee. The Senate has two-thirds Democrats. So if they want a bill to become a constitutional amendment, they can get that through without crossing the aisle. And in the House, we can't. We have to have either one or two Republicans, just depending on the where the House is at the time. So both of those are in the same space. HB 65, this bill has been reintroduced for like 7 years now. It's actually moving the state primary in line with the presidential primary. And this does two things. It saves $1.5 million, which is good because most of these bills ask for money. It It also will increase voter turnout. It is proven, it's statistical. The presidential primary grabs more attention, period. So if people are paying attention to that, then they also at the same time can pay attention to the state primary. So it would move it to April, the state primary, as opposed to where it is in September. YW and the Delaware Voting Rights Coalition is in support of this. It has moved through the House. Every year it has moved through the House. It has gotten through the Senate committee, and the problem is on the Senate floor, and that is with both sides of the aisle sometimes. So this is a very mixed bill. Listening to it in committee yesterday, some of the only opposition is really senators say they don't have time to run for office in April because they're busy working. And the problem is that's kind of a selfish thought. I get that that's your job, but if you're going to increase voter turnout, you can accommodate. You're always running. And that was a bit of a dispute between two senators yesterday. One saying that running for office and doing your job are two different things. Simply put, if you're a politician, you are always running unless you've decided not to. Every bill you sign on to, every bill you create, every, event you go to. So that is, hopefully we'll see what happens. HB 88, another first leg of constitutional amendment. And this is to allow the General Assembly to enact laws for registration of voters without restrictions on time period. So we don't refer to this as same-day voter registration because that's a trigger word, but this is basically so that the legislators can establish same-day voter registration or even move it closer, like a week out, because right now it's like 24 days from the election you have to be registered. And that one has gone through the House committee and it's on the House floor ready. Okay, so next we have HB 180. And this bill is like so many people are signed on to it. It's great. This limits the loss of the right to vote of an individual who's convicted of a felony to the period during which the individual is in prison due to the felony or until the individual's pardoned, whichever comes first. This means no fees can hold someone back. The minute they're a returning citizen, they're eligible to vote, which is a really big deal. It's like super, it's just right now you can do it, but there are certain crimes that you commit that you can't, and that's what this one is kind of alleviating. So I'm going to pause on that one to see if you have any questions before we move on to another topic. All right.
Anyone?
Anyone? All right. I speak fast, so feel free to stop me. My husband and daughter joke around and say, "Do you speak Becca?" Um, okay, this is more civil rights. SB 100 is another first leg. And I just want to emphasize that the reason that we're doing this, obviously, is because the administration is changing laws that we've taken for granted forever. And so, Delaware, we are in a lucky space where we at least can have the ability to push for constitutional amendments. And this is establishing the right to marry as a fundamental right. And Delaware and its political subdivisions, we will recognize marriages and issue marriage license regardless of gender. So it's already a law in Delaware that you can marry whomever you want, but it's not in our Constitution. So, and that has been introduced and assigned to the executive committee. So it hasn't quite gone anywhere yet. SB 78. This act prohibits discrimination in public schools, including school districts and charter schools, based on race, ethnicity, creed, color, religion, socioeconomic status, all of the above, protective hairstyle. It's basically just a prohibition of discrimination, obviously gender identity, some of those things. And that bill has gone through the Senate committee and it is Senate floor ready. All right, HB 35. This one we were down on Tuesday for it. This is the to abolish the death penalty. So in Delaware right now we have no law. We had a law and it was deemed unconstitutional by the superior courts. And the thing is, every year there are bills brought up to reinstate it and it has bounced back and forth. And so the group organizing behind this is just like, let's just be done. In Delaware, we're not going to have the death penalty. And I did have the privilege of speaking with Representative Hensley about this bill. And I was able to say to him, we now know without a doubt that people have been convicted and put to death and they were innocent. And I said, is one of those people worth the ability to for the state to take other people's lives? And he was really on board with that. He's like, that's where I really struggle. He's like, with victims and things like that. He said, the families. And I said, some families they want to forgive. They don't want any of this. It takes so much longer with a death penalty case, and it's never really over because there's appeal after appeal after appeal. So I don't know if it's got all the votes, but it was very positive, and I was talking to Republicans, so I think we might be able to do that. And that one has gotten through committee, and it is ready for a House vote. And this last constitutional amendment is SS1 to SB5, and this act is the first leg of an amendment to our Constitution to ensure that every Delawarean is afforded reproductive freedom, which again is a law in Delaware. It's just not our Constitution. And that has gone through the Senate, been voted on in the Senate, and now it's assigned to the House Administration Committee. All right.
Becca,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. Some of these bills originate in the House and some originate in the Senate.
Yes. Whatever letters in front of it.
Okay.
So it's Senate bill, it originates in the Senate, and if it's HB, then it originates in the House, which means that if it originates in the Senate and I say it's somewhere in the House, it means it's gone through three parts of it, if that makes sense to you.
It does, but is it possible for any of these bills to be introduced by either chamber?
No, no, there's one main sponsor. Um, but I will tell you, they have this discussion beforehand about who is going to run it in which chamber, the two sponsors, because sometimes they know we can get this one through the House easily, and then it can, sit there and we can kind of push in the Senate, right? And vice versa. So the sponsors usually communicate and they decide what's best for the bill. It's not really like, oh, I have this bill or you have this bill. It's like, how can we get it through?
But technically, it could begin in either the Senate or the House.
Not with the number. Like it would always be they would introduce it as HB or SB, and that's where it has to go first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there a particular bill that must start in the Senate or it must start in the House? Or could it?
Anyone that is introduced by a senator that is assigned like an
Sure,
SB.
sure.
So they obviously have a co-sponsor in the House. It's usually the person that's really passionate about it. Usually someone will have a bill and then they'll go recruit someone in the House or the Senate to be their co-sponsor, and usually they do all of the work. And if you notice sometimes by the time it gets to the second chamber, if you ever listen to committees, sometimes that representative or senator will have no idea what the bill's about, which is slightly unfortunate. They have an idea what it's about, but they can't answer deep questions.
Thanks.
So, okay. Criminal justice system. So SB 10, this act revises the process for sentence modification in three ways. First, this act removes the border parole from sentence modification process, provides the applications for sentence modifications that are made directly to the sentencing court. And second, it provides an individual who's incarcerated for more than 1 year may seek a sentence modification in three circumstances. I didn't list the circumstances because I didn't want to list the whole bill, but essentially this is a compassionate release bill, meaning if you are an elder or you are sick, and really you're not going to last, you don't have a ton of life left. Sometimes the compassionate thing is to release someone with the understanding that they will have the support in the community, if that makes sense. Like if someone tries to get out and they're older and they can't take care of themselves and they have no one to take care of them, we can't certainly put them out on the street. So, but that is new and that is a great bill. So, and that bill is ready for Senate Finance. So the one thing that's going to hold up a lot of these bills this year is the cost, because we don't know what's going to happen with the federal budget and how that's going to hurt our state budget. So, which is why normally right now they're doing joint finances writing the bill, or they've already done it. for the budget. They're not even touching it till I think next week they're going to start marking it up, which is late. Um, okay. HB 59. So this act extends certain limitations on the publication by law enforcement of the name and photograph of crime suspects. This one includes adults. So there's already a law that says if it's a juvenile, you can't post their picture um, or their name. And now this is a bill to basically say you can't do that, period. Like if you're arresting someone and they're not convicted, they're saying police can't release unless it's for the benefit of the obviously the community. If someone's gotten away and people need to, be familiar with who the person looks like, that's one thing. But generally speaking, uh, the law basically says you're not going to put someone's picture in the paper before they're actually convicted. And that one is currently assigned to House Judiciary, which means it's only been introduced at this point. All right. All right, here we go. Lots more. SS1 for SB 57. And by the way, the SS1s are substitute bills, which usually means that in the committee, people were like, oh, I think you need to do this. And so other people put input and then they'll reintroduce the bill kind of with the same spirit, but some changes that have been agreed upon by everyone. So SB 57 and SB 58 are kind of go together and it's really relating to DNA evidence. Specifically, this first one, the act to remove limitations to currently in the Delaware Code that a person convicted of a crime must seek DNA testing within 3 years after conviction is final. That is the way it is now, and it removes that limitation, which is great, especially because sometimes you don't realize that you have DNA evidence, or maybe it comes later in another crime and you realize that that's not the person that did it. So, and that person convicted of a crime, they may not seek DNA testing or a new trial based on DNA evidence. So that's basically throwing those things out. It's saying you can use DNA anytime and you can start a new trial based on that. So, and that bill has gone through the committee and is on the Senate floor. So, SS1 to SB 58. This provides a remedy for convicted persons relating to change in forensic, scientific, or technical information. Specifically, a convicted person may apply to the Superior Court for relief if certain forensic scientific information was not available to be offered by the convicted person prior to the conviction, or if it undermines forensic scientific evidence that was presented at pretrial. So basically, this one just says if there's new technology, we want to be able to use that to let people go as well. If there's some sort of face scanning or some sort of new technology that comes up, that can basically say whether someone's guilty or innocent, that we're going to accept the new technology. So it's just kind of proactive in that space. And these are the bills that Sue was talking about that our good friend Lynn and her Thai Chief Justice work on amazingly. So HB 132, this is again just elimination of more court fines and fees for those involved in the criminal justice system. That one passed out of judiciary and it's assigned to appropriations. And if you notice, I said this is where some might get hung up. So appropriations is where all the bills sit until they decide to mark up JFC. So the question is this bill going to make it to the floor? Does it have the funding? And HA1 to HB 133, it gives the courts discretion to waive fines and fees in whole or in part based on appropriate circumstances, such as ability to pay. So it's really like an ability to pay bill, and there's all kinds of requirements, and it was too specific or not specific enough. So that's why she had to add an amendment. And so this hopefully will be next week in the House Judiciary. All right. All right. Immigration. So we have tons of immigration bills. So if this is something you're passionate about, lock in. So because there's lots of public comment that needs to be made, and it shouldn't always be from the community specifically affected. It should be from them, but not just from them. So HB 60. This bill limits circumstances in which personal identifiable information about applicants or holders of driving privilege cards may be released to those instances where the Delaware Attorney General only gives specific approval or where the request for information is a valid court order. So several years ago, I want to say 8 years ago, Delaware passed the driving privilege card, where someone who wasn't necessarily documented could go get a driving privilege card so they could have car insurance. So it was really a protection for all of us. Um, and now, unfortunately, we are where we are. So this is a bill basically blocking anybody from just getting those records. And that one made it through committee and is ready for the House floor. HB 58, law enforcement officer of this one's very, there's a lot of debate. So it did get through, but we'll see, how it does. But because of the law enforcement, they were like, no way. But this is basically law enforcement is not allowed to do any of the following: stop, question, arrest, search, or detain an individual based on actual or suspected citizenship or immigration status or actual suspected violations of federal civil immigration law. They're not allowed to inquire about an individual's immigration status, citizenship, place of birth, or eligibility for a social security number. They're not allowed to make arrest, detain, or prolong the detention of an individual based on civil immigration warrants or immigration detainers. Simply, this is a bill that basically says our police are not going to cooperate with ICE. You guys do your thing, but we're not going to really give you a hand. And so the police's argument against this was that they already do this. This is already their policies. Okay. People have experienced different things, but this is already technically their policies. And I don't know if any of you were aware, but Camden Police actually signed an agreement with ICE. And this happened about 2 weeks ago. Roger's shaking his head. Yeah. And I have to say, activists and people won like immediately. It was everywhere. And I'm pretty sure that, and it's been dissolved. Like the contract no longer exists, but it's only because of the amazing ACLU who tracks that. And so they knew right away. They got a hold of the people, like the people who organized there, and they were hot. They were so upset about it. So but that basically says that we're not going to do that. And that one's ready for the floor as well. HB 151. This act, so this is Representative Gorman. These seem to be preventative acts. So this one prohibits the operation of private detention facilities in the state of Delaware. Delaware does not currently have any private prisons. This simply states we don't want any. Um, and that's just been introduced and assigned Judiciary Committee. So it just came out last week. HB 150. This bill prohibits civil arrests from being made in courthouses without a judicial warrant. So this is basically someone being in a courthouse and civilly arresting someone, which isn't really a thing, but apparently they've started doing it in other states to immigrants. Like in the courthouses, and it's called. I think Rep. Gorman was really just trying to say we don't want any of this stuff in Delaware. So, and the first two are Representative Lynn Moore. Yes. So, like I said, there's quite a bit. HB 96. This act requires the Division of Civil Rights and Public Trust of the Department of Justice to submit a quarterly report to the General Assembly Governor Office of Legislative Services, basically detailing any requests that they've gotten from federal government or entity, from any state law enforcement agency. So basically, if the federal government gives us a request, that should be reported every quarter to the General Assembly, et cetera. And that one has gotten through the committee, and now it's on the House ready list. HB 95. So this act prohibits the Department of Education, public schools, and operators of companies that hold digital student data from sharing student information with immigration enforcement agencies without permission from the Delaware Attorney General. Meaning someone has to give her a warrant and they have to have just cause to be able to even, cooperate. It has to be justifiable. That one is on the House ready list. That one's a good bill, but the legislator didn't kind of meet with the AG before they added these additional responsibilities. So I don't know how they're going to pan out in the end. I mean, people are really passionate about it right now, of course. HB 94. So this again, I guess those are kind of similar. Act restricts enforcement from cooperating with federal agencies. Oh, so this is specifically immigration enforcement activities. Oh no, at schools, churches without permission from the Attorney General. So this one basically says we're not going to. People can go to schools and churches and feel safe in Delaware. And that one is assigned to the House Public and Safety and Homeland Security Committee. So it hasn't really done anything yet. And so I have this one under environment, but it's not specifically the act. And there's another bill that I just didn't have time to find, but I will look for while we're on the phone. My goodness, sorry. HB 62, this act updates the law relating to the termination of utility services to a dwelling unit by adopting and expanding state regulations concerning the termination of heating and cooling services. So I think everybody is aware if you get an electric bill that we've had some hikes over the last couple months. And um, that just encourages electric companies when you have a lot of money to turn off your electric. But we really don't want, especially people, that are on oxygen tanks, the elderly, you don't want them in really hot places or really cold places. So this is a law basically saying these are the circumstances only that you can shut off the electric. So that bill has already been through three parts. So it's gone through the House committee, the House, the Senate committee, and the Senate floor already. So that one's almost done. The other bill, again, I think it's 150, but I'm not 100% sure. But there's another bill that talks about basically your income-based assistance for electric. So like a lot of people, even in the lower middle class, could not afford their bills all of a sudden. And so this adds, I think it's like 200% over and above the poverty level of assistance. So, and I think right now it's supposed to be coming from federal money. So I don't know what I don't know what the plan is, but that might be it. Yes, that is everything that I have for you. And I know that was a lot. But are there anything in particular that you guys are passionate about or I didn't cover? Because I'm glad to like check out some bills and let you know if they weren't there. Roger,
Becca, do you want to stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody?
that would be great.
Thanks.
Sure.
Um, I noticed that the clean car directives are under attack now because they do specify that certain number of electric vehicles have to be sold in Delaware by certain dates. And it's a pushback from the governor and a lot of chatter about it, but there's no bills in there, is there?
There
Or
is no
is that the DENREC's prerogative to enforce that?
It is well, it's not their prerogative because it actually falls on the dealerships themselves, right?
Oh,
So
right.
I will tell you that I understand the not wanting a mandate. I do
Okay.
understand like you can't tell. But one of the things we could do in reverse is we could incentivize actually dealerships to have more EV cars, right? Um, as opposed to punishing those who don't. Because I just think when you get into that, people get very upset about their rights.
That's right.
And we know we need to do it. But those diesel cars or trucks and everything are still going to be happening. So, but there's no indication that there's anything introduced yet, Roger, that would say that they're going to be able to do that yet.
Okay. Um, on SB 3, which is the absentee bill,
Hmm.
I know it's a couple of Republican votes. It's very critical that they get a couple of House votes from the Republicans to get that one moving. Do you know what the arguments they're saying against that?
Okay, so I'm going back to which SB 3 is actually for the absentee vote. Is that what you said?
The absentee
Yes.
voter, right?
Yes, their argument. Yes, we got that today. I'm scooping over between you and my other screen. Fraud. There's so much fraud. There's all voter fraud. When we mail in our votes, it's voter fraud.
What
So,
there's no evidence of that.
and we had people talking with them today, literally saying, "Where's the evidence? You have evidence." And they're like, "I don't have any, but there's voter." So that's the argument. about that particular bill. That's the hold up. But we're hoping if we lean on some of the more moderate Republicans, especially the ones up north here.
Yeah, well, there's Mike Smith has a coffee on May 20th, which I intend to go to and ask him the question.
Ask him, does he want another race this year?
Yeah.
We
So,
need him on all of these. We need him on. He said he was 100% behind this stuff when he was running again. So technically, he should be on board for SB 5 in the Constitution. That's the reproductive justice bill. He should be on board for that one. He should be on board for voting rights. Whether he will or not, I don't know.
so
So,
you think that when he was running, he was saying he was going to be for these bills?
well, when he was running, what he said about the right to choose for women was it was already taken care of here. And so we don't need to worry about it. And the ironic thing about that, it was like, well, yeah, as long as Trump doesn't win the election, then we don't have to worry about it. But he didn't, so now we do,
Got it. Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Sarah, did you have a question?
Well, I did sort of back to Mike Smith. I mean, he did originally vote for the constitutional amendment. This goes back a few years on
Mhm.
voting rights.
Which bill on voting rights, Sally? The early voting or absentee voting?
Both.
He
Both.
voted for both.
I want to say 4 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah. So 3 sessions ago, they did it and they passed. And then when it got through the second leg, it was right after 2020 and the big steal. And so all of the Republicans who had promised to vote for it even let it get all the way to the floor and then had a little fun on behalf of the Democrats who were very upset because they wouldn't have brought it to the floor if they didn't have the votes. So there were committed votes that people just said no. So, although you know what, Sarah, I'm not 100% sure if it was both of them or not. I'd actually have to look that up.
Yeah,
I think it's no excuse though. I think it was no
I
excuse.
think that's what I think too. I remember talking with him about it this after he had voted in one session, yes, and then no. But
Yeah,
it was just what everybody knows, the fraud, the fraud, the fraud.
It wasn't. It was politics. I mean, honestly, like Mike Smith knows there's no fraud.
there's no.
Like
Yeah.
he knows, and he's in a majority Dem district.
Yes.
Like I didn't realize his district is more Dems than anything. The thing about Mike Smith is he's a really nice guy, and when
Mhm.
he treats his constituents well. And when you do that, most constituents care more about, the hole in the back of their yard or
Yeah.
getting dealt out to do something than they do about voting rights. And it'd be great if they could care about both equally. Um, so, that's education on our part sometimes, I think.
But I mean, you say, oh, there's fraud, but there are already, I am sure, severe penalties for voting if you're not eligible to vote. So
Yes.
that's handled. And
What the
the risk reward is so low
Yes.
on
But
fraudulent voting. I mean, it's like nobody in their right mind. A lot of people are not in their right mind. I get that, but
that's not logic is not the issue here, I don't think.
no,
No.
it's
It's
politics.
just the
But
um,
what politics for who is they are trying to appeal to?
Right.
Who finds it appealing that what's constituency finds it appealing that they can't vote just because, I'm working, I got two
A
kids,
big constituency in our country.
yeah. I
The
think
talk
one
I
about
thing
think
Delaware.
the one big thing that they think that happens with that particular bill is that people go to all the nursing homes and forge everyone, and then they come and they submit 50 votes. Like that's their big thing. They really believe that people do. I wish people had energy to do this. I don't even know. We can't get people who do come to vote. So go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry.
yeah. No. I'm just thinking again about the prove it argument. But I did have a question about fines and fees. There were two I think two bills.
Yes.
one would be the bigger fines and fees, and then the other had exceptions to the to when fines and fees might be imposed. I know there's a fiscal issue with the getting rid of
Yes.
them altogether, and I wondered if that fiscal issue applies to those kind of special circumstances, the income testing.
Yes. Yeah. So that'll be the holdup with both of those bills because they both have a
Financial impact, right?
thank you. Yes, yes, they both cost the state money. And so had this been 2 years ago, probably wouldn't have been a problem. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping though, I mean, it's not a ton of money, but because I listen to so many committees, there's bills that passed last year that are supposed to be we never paid for. We're like, we'll pay for them in 2026 when we put them into play. I don't know what they're going to do with those bills. There were like three big ones, and I was just like, oh my God, like the Family Justice Center. I don't know how that's going to get funded. It's passed. We're supposed to have one, but that's a big price tag. So I don't envy our lawmakers and our governor at all during this next month or so. Month.
How does who gets to claim if the primary was changed to the presidential debate and we had a presidential primary vote and we had that savings? Who gets to claim that and
Oh, it
apply?
comes out of the general, it probably comes out of elections fund, and they would just reroute that to another general fund. I mean, you could try to claim something specific with it, but Rep. Bolden's just trying to get a pass for. I think she may do the same thing with that Paul Bombeck did with the Dying with Dignity bill, where he just kept pushing it every year because she's brought this bill up for 8 sessions. The Senate just won't go for it. So, any other questions?
Where might our voices be helpful?
That's great. So I would say Roger's already on it. Those that if you are passionate about the voting bills, if you have relationship with Republican legislators, all the Dems are on board for the voting bills, the constitutional amendments. I have not seen the reproductive freedom bill move. And I don't know, like it hasn't even, it's been introduced and not heard in committee yet, which is troublesome. It may mean that it just doesn't have the political will this session. But I don't know for sure. I'd have to reach out to Senator Townsend. So voting really needs your help. I'm going to peek at this real quick just to see. There were some other ones you might be interested in, but they were easy ones they were going to go through. So I didn't bother um, bringing those up.
Yeah,
Okay.
like how about the non-discrimination?
Um, I you mean the one for schools?
Right.
Um, let me
Well,
see.
no, I thought there was one on marriage equality more
Oh,
general.
yes. That one was just introduced last week. So I don't know the push that it needs. But depending on where you live, if you have, unfortunately, our state is so divided. If you have a Republican legislator, it's always good to do that. I believe that almost the Democrats are on board for all the constitutional amendments. But again, we still need two because Stell, and I can't even think of her last name right now, or is her last name Stell? One of the representatives had a stroke, and I don't know the whole story, but she hasn't been in all session, and her vote would be absolutely essential to pass any of the
Selby.
constitutional amendments. What was
Selby.
that? Selby, thank you. Thank you. Um, so without her, we need two Republicans. We ended up winning a new seat. Like we needed two last year, and now we have Frank Burns instead of Representative Ramon. But now we have kind of an issue with Rep. Selby just not feeling well or not. I don't really know the details. So, and you can sign up for lobby days. Next week there are three. We had an what they called an ex-prisoner one last week. And that was really for the compassionate release bill and the fines and fees bills. So that was not this week, but the week before. Coming up this week, there's housing lobby day on Thursday. Um, there is, hold on, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm gonna look because one of them is nonprofit day, and then the other one is probation reform. Okay, so I didn't talk about this because I don't have a bill number, but this really has been going on for so many years. And that I will say that we are very honest when we are talking with the DOC and when we're talking with the AG's office about the changes we want and the things we want done. And I say we as in the activists, the advocates, the lobbyists, whatever you want to call all of us. But they're not always upfront with us at all. They will take notes about what we say, and then they will go and they will talk to Senator Pinckney on their own instead of having us all in the conversation. They've done this throughout the process. So there was a really good probation bill last year. It got chewed up and chewed up and chewed up. So Senator Pinckney started from scratch this year. And one of the sticking points was actually it's the actual circumstances that people can be reintroduced to the justice system, I guess you'd have to say, reentry, and what those rules and laws are. So, for example, you could go to prison and never have any kind of alcohol or drug problem. However, on probation, you are still required. And a gentleman on the call shared how he has never had a drug problem and he has a house and he has to go and someone has to watch you pee. And it's like, when do you get to be yourself? Like he has to do his whole probation. And it's unfortunate. So that's one of the circumstances that they really push with. And at least if they could agree that people that they know don't have a drug and alcohol problem, like it's written down, you know that because you've either given them treatment or not, or just do it for a year. It's insane that it's part of their whole entire probation period. So, but that is next week, and that will really need a lot of help because it's needed help this whole time. Because now we've split it down to two bills, and the first one will not be as effective without the other one. I'm just looking for the day so I can tell you guys just in case.
So, Becca,
And
how would we know when the various lobby days are? Are those published somewhere that we can see, or do we rely on people like you or Lynn or Sonia Starr
yes,
to tell us when we should show up?
yes, and I say that jokingly because I've never done as many lobby days in my life because there's just one person at YW that does this. So I'm not going to take on an entire lobby day. The ACLU has like 10 people, but I'm happy to support their lobby day, right? Fines and fees and DCJ, happy to go support that. Sonia with Housing Alliance Delaware, happy to go support that. So either I'm going to be honest, get on the ACLU list. They usually do like they're doing the voting rights and they're doing probation reform and they were part of the fines and fees one. So if you are not on the ACLU email, you should get on that. And they may even have you sign up by topic or not. I don't know specifically because I'm in meetings with everyone all week, so I forget, Sue, that people don't really know that stuff. And maybe that's something, even as YW, we should just start posting. Like if you're interested, we have to be very cautious now. We get 70% of our funding. It's federal. So I would suggest getting on the ACLU list. Or, if you care about housing, Sonia's list. But you just gave me a really good idea. So I'm thinking that's a problem that needs to be solved. If people are free and it's hard to know everything that's going on. Like I get paid to know. I would probably know even if I didn't, but not as much. But it's really hard to keep track of it all.
We are thinking we haven't our education committee hasn't met, and we need to because I think we only have a schedule through early June. But one of the subjects that came up that we thought might be a good thing to have a Thursday night class on, and maybe not right now, would be lobby days and making public comment. How do you know about lobby days? What are they like? They seem terrifying. Are they? What happens? Giving public comment. Oh, that sounds really hard. Something that would share enough information about what a lobby day is, what it feels like, what you do. You're really not all alone. What about giving public comment? You don't want to look stupid. So something that would kind of ease people's angst
Yes.
participating.
Yes, I had some newbies with me today, and I love newbies. When we go in and we talk to legislators, it's just so great because people are very intimidated by legislators, and they're just regular people. Like I think once you get to know one a little bit more personal, like you're like, oh, they're just people like me. Like, it's, they're just people like me. Just they have a different job. Um, so most of them are all very approachable. And if you spend time down there, you're never going to go do any of those things generally by yourself because someone will help you in all of the organizations that we do. Like all of us that are in this space will help you do public comment. We'll help you write it. We'll help you practice it. We will tell you to have 1 minute recorded and 2 minutes recorded because sometimes there was a judiciary meeting the other day, the one that Lynn went to, that was 3.5 hours, 3 hours long. It was 3 hours long. And so at the end, they say, we need to cut public comment down to 1 minute. And so if you're not prepared for that, you writ your thing, you're like, I don't know what to cut out. It happens all the time. I've done it. I get down. I'm like, okay, well, to, to be to be continued. So. And you can submit everything in writing as well. Although, to be honest, they don't really read it. So, and the legislators have told me that. But for an organization like mine, that basically there are bills that are easy that I know are going to get through. I will just send a letter in support, just for the record and making sure that we make a statement. Because if there is a stack of letters, they might take a look. But if it's a bill that I'm like, they don't really need my public comment. See, that's the important thing too, is to kind of know, like Sue asked a really good question, where does the energy need to be spent? SB2, I said I'm pretty sure 100% or 90% sure that that's one's going to get through, which is great. But we still have to wait till we have new people. If anybody switches seats in 2 years, we have to make sure that those individuals, we have 2/3 as well that would want this to happen. So the constitutional amendments are long hauls. They could be a good 4 years if they were introduced now. So
Other questions or comments?
yes,
James.
let's go for it.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So my question would be in regards to immigration. The standing law right now, can ICE invade a workplace, schools, and can they also, with the information they have, bust you in the streets like we've seen in Massachusetts and stuff like that? Right now, the law in Delaware, where do we stand on that?
So we don't have laws one way or the other.
Okay.
So technically, yes, we could have, and there are people. I mean, ICE is downstate Delaware even before Trump was elected. So like it is. They have a thing, whatever. But the important thing is we really don't want the state to cooperate with them. And unfortunately, Government Meyer won't give that directive. And I should let me rephrase that. He has to be very cognizant of supporting one group and then having other groups suffer. So, for example, if we were to say we're a sanctuary state, which I would love us to be, there's a possibility that they could say, we're not going to fund your whatever they want to say, right? No federal funding for University of Delaware. Like you've seen that these are just one-off random things. And so it's when you attract that attention. And Massachusetts and Maine, it has been happening in Massachusetts. I saw quite a few videos. But to your point, James, we don't really have any laws saying they can't. And we really can't because federal law, they can. That's what's insane about the whole thing is people are wearing masks. And I just heard one of the senators question someone about that. Did they know that you could buy them off eBay? Like you can get the vest, you can get the whole package off eBay. And so how long is it going to be till people are just taking people? And they're not even part of ICE, right? And there's no process. So that's the scary thing.
And then when that happens, do in Delaware, do you have due process, or they just pick you up and ship you to, a certain location that Nobody knows where you're at. Do you have a?
We don't have instances of that happening here, James, and I believe that we would hear that. It doesn't mean that we won't,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So it just means they either haven't gotten to us, they don't want to concentrate on us, we're not a big enough numbers or whatever. I don't know what they're looking for, to be honest, when it comes to this. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just to be cruel. I
Mhm.
mean, James, if you're talking about the one in Massachusetts, you probably saw the one where the baby with the woman
Yep.
and the baby,
Yep.
and I'm like, and Sue, you know, your history project, it's like all over again. It's difficult. It's difficult. Um, but I think the important thing is that at least our law enforcement doesn't cooperate with them,
Okay.
like aren't backing them up, and you know.
So, do you see any of these bills being law? Is there support to enact a law that will safeguard? Because now, right now, we have even people who like professionally they are here legally and they have their green cards that are about to expire or work permits that are a bit almost expiring, and they don't know because the chances of you now reporting back, you seen the guy who went for an interview of citizenship and they arrested that guy. So now people are kind of they're all scared, like you don't know,
Right.
I'll say, what to do with, and that's a legal way of doing things. So you're doing the legal way, but then you're afraid if you show up, you know. So I hope you become a voice, and let people know that a big proportion of people, professionals, doctors, I work in the hospital, and I don't want to say what's going on, but that fear is there.
Yeah.
Uh, there are some
100%.
Yeah, it's there. So, and these people have families. We've already invested here. You know what I mean? Everybody's looking to be a citizen, and we're doing it the right way. So now the problem is, who do we work with, or is there an agency like somebody can follow up with just to have those answers?
There is not. And I think that the whole country is in that flux, James. My heart's breaking even listening to you talk, because we don't know, and we can't. Like we just don't have the protections. They're not obeying the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can't do anything to them because they have immunity or federal, whatever you want to call it, protections. So I can say that I think in Delaware, if that starts to happen, if we can organize enough, there's a group of people that really want to drive. And I'm saying, as a white woman, drive to the places where the immigration people are, the ICE is, and get in the middle. And I know that sounds like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? Because,
Yeah.
like, who knows? I mean, I'm going to get out of jail in a couple of days, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a very scary world. It's not. It's very scary.
It
And
is.
There is a group, I know Terry Dykstra is very active, and people from First and Central and some of the other faith communities at looking at actions that might be taken to help protect the immigrant community from some of the abuses that are happening. I mean, to your point, the government is breaking the law to do these things. There is recourse, but it's through the courts. And guess what? It takes more than 20 minutes
Mhm.
to make that happen. And you have to know where the people are, and you have to have access to the resources. And so, as a consequence, the government just does what it wants and let the chips fall where they may. So I think Terry and her group are looking at things as you suggest, how to protect people in courthouses, in schools, in churches, how to provide safe space, how to be a phone number if someone's able to make a call,
Right.
just to offer some sort of support in the midst of this horror.
Could could the ACLU, right?
ACLU. Mhm.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try and call them and see if they
They
Yeah.
have
have, they do have, so,
information. Yeah.
well, if you go to their website, James, they have something called the Freedom Wall, or the Firewall of Freedom.
Okay.
Firewall of freedom. Right.
Yeah. And
Good.
so they have a whole program where they have a how to be an ally to immigrants, and they also have know your rights.
Okay.
And so, Sue, if you haven't had them do that, that might be a good Thursday night thing.
We did have
Oh,
Mike Brickner come and
oh,
do that. And one of the things that the ACLU makes available, and I think maybe we might want to make a supply of them available at Westminster, they have those little cards.
mhm.
Your rights as an immigrant, your rights as an ally, and they are in both English and Spanish at least. And
Yes,
I think they were looking to translate them into more languages, just so people would pick up those cards and have them available to say, if something happens to me, and quite frankly, we're going to need them. What happens if I get arrested at a protest?
right.
Yeah.
For my rights. We need those little cards that people have in their pocket or their purse that says, if/when these abuses happen to me, what are my rights? What can I do? So I think that's something that we could help supply.
That
And
would be great,
so,
Sue, because
James,
I
I think
think,
that might be helpful too. I'll follow up on that.
Thank
okay,
you. Yeah.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Becca. You never have any energy. You never have, you're just so laid back and let the chips fall where they may. And
Oh, you
you
got
were,
me on a good day, Sue. You got me after a day of pumped up with advocates at Legislative Hall. So and I haven't seen the news yet today.
well, that's
So
better, probably.
I know, because I usually know what's happening, and I'm like, oh, what's happening?
Oh,
Nothing
yeah.
that direct,
Don't
but
do that.
yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for having me.
And
I
thank
know
you
Sue has my
for,
email. Anytime, feel free to reach out. If you want to go, I also offer this. If you would like to go to Legislative Hall for a day, I should tell you this too. I am glad to take a buddy, meaning I can't really, I will try to get an appointment with your legislators so you can meet them. And I don't know what my day will be, but I am glad to take someone along to meet their legislators, to listen to public comment, to see what the drive is like, to see where you park. All of that goes into a first timer. It really does. The anxiety. If you know where to park, that is so important because it looks confusing. It's not. There's parking lots, but you just don't know where. So, Sue, know that you know what, and I can write that up and send it to you if people ever want to reach out and do like a day.
yes, if you would do that, and I'll send it out to people, and I think it'll be a precursor to how do we get people more active. I mean,
Yes,
our voices matter at some point. It's all that matters.
Mhm.
yes,
And so that's what we need to be
yep,
about. And
yep.
thank you, Becca, for the work you do. My goodness, what
Thank
an
you so
impact you're
much.
having.
Love
Yes.
you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Always a pleasure to
You.
see you guys. Thanks.
Take
Keep it up.
care. Thanks.
All right,
Good night.
Thank you,
bye.
Becca. Good night.